Hi everyone, Sandman here. This video is brought to you by a donation from James, and here's what he briefly has to say. Hi Sandman, there's a YouTube channel called Mentis Wave that covers libertarian philosophy and debunking Marxist talking points and whatnot. What's your opinion on it? Well James, thanks for the donation as well as the topic. I took a look at that channel and it has videos titled Why the Left Can't Beam, Socialism is a Grift, and the Equity Fallacy. Mentis Wave criticizes leftoid grifters like Vosh and Hassan Piker. And the idea, of course, is that guys like those probably don't even believe in their own leftist arguments. Hence, they're just grifting. I agree. Most people making online content don't agree with the content they're making. The only way to reasonably be sure that they aren't grifters is if they started making content in the 2010s or earlier, back in the days when you couldn't make enough money from YouTube to make a living. Mentis Wave points out guys like the Quartering and Sargon of Akkad, who both started around the same time I did, as an example of guys that aren't grifting. They had something to say about the crazy state of the world just like I did back in 2013. I'm sorry James, but I didn't have the patience to listen to an entire video from Mentis Wave. It's arguments that I've heard before about communism bad and libertarianism good. As far as I'm concerned, neither capitalism nor communism give us what we want. And that, of course, is an end to central planners and central banks. You always hear that real communism has never been tried before. But then again, neither has real capitalism. The isms are all about control. Both ideologies are all about inflating the money supply and stealing our savings. Even libertarianism, which is belief in gold, is all about control to some extent. I'm sure you've all heard about the golden rule. He who has the gold makes the rule. So I'm sorry, James, I couldn't listen to more than a couple of videos from that channel and not to completion. My channel deals with memes these days, but when I make non-meme videos, I like to cover the dynamics between male and female nature. One of the reasons I think that many men adopted communism was because it gave women the right to pursue whatever career they wanted. Men are hopeless romantics when it comes to equality, and we want female counterparts that are on our own level. Women, of course, want a man that's beyond their level. They want men to function like Big Daddy Government, giving them his surplus so they're supposedly equal. But of course she takes the majority of his spoils. But neither men nor women thought about how communist and capitalist governments steal the money they earn, their wages, using inflation. In communism, often the problem appears to be in the form of breadlines. But in capitalism, the problem appears to be in the form of wealth inequality, and where the majority of the wealth is hoovered up by 10% of the population. If in the end both men and women were all wealthy because AI created technological abundance, then the new currency would probably become social media attention, beauty, or something else. At that point, winning the lottery might mean that the social media platforms out there give you 1 million followers. The powers that don't want you to be want the fiat money system to continue as long as possible, so they can buy up as many of the assets as possible with printed money. While everyone argues about ideology, they're taking all the wealth for themselves. And Mentis Wave plays right into that. James, maybe you could check out the YouTube channel Gary's Economics if you really want to know what's going on. Even what we call capitalism in the West is increasingly women making up most of the bureaucracy, siphoning off our tax dollars from the more productive men working in the private sector, while the public sector keeps getting bloated, eating up more and more of the productivity gains that the wealthy don't gobble up first. The wealthy put their assets into tax shelters, but the working man is the one that has to support not only women that work in inefficient government positions, but also pay taxes to support the infrastructure. At least in communism, the men figured out that the government was only pretending to pay them, so they in turn only pretended to work. Under capitalism, men have been the beasts of burden, because enough of what we earned remain in our pockets. But more men than ever are starting to go their own way from the workforce now, because they can't get ahead being a wagee. We have crony capitalism. At some point between supporting governments, migrants, and women, most men will stop being productive and earning a wage, and will either leave the West, figure out a way to make money from assets instead of working, or just check out and do the minimum required to survive, pay their bills, and then play video games. Capitalism will ultimately fail because of the wealth inequality between men and women, as well as the wealthy and everyone else. The greatest tragedy of both capitalism and communism is that central bankers are stealing so much purchasing power through inflation that most of the cost savings through innovation that are being made are being eaten up by the bureaucracy. Why do you think that Doge has been in the headlines this year? The left or communism's power is in the bureaucracy. You kill the bureaucracy and you kill the left. Sure, you can criticize the left and leftoid YouTubers online, but it's something totally different to take their power and money away. Also, this idea that Mentis Wave brings up that the left is not being able to meme is true. If you've been living off a cushy government job your whole life, or you're a young idealistic moron thinking that communism will solve all your problems because everyone else is more intelligent and productive than you, so you want to redistribute their wealth, then you aren't a very bright person to begin with. Communism is the ideology of losers, or those like Vosh or Stalin trying to exploit the losers so they do their bidding and give them power. Why do you think the American left wants to flood the country with dumb and poor migrants from all over the world? Unfortunately for them, in the most recent election, Latino men were more likely to vote for Trump and the right, but black men are more likely to vote for Democrats. So I wouldn't be surprised if they switched up their strategy in coming decades and started flooding the country with African migrants instead. As for capitalism, it's an ideology of hard workers that are tricked into believing that playing by the rules and working hard will mean a decent quality of life. That dream is falling apart now as people are slowly figuring out that they were lied to. I figured this lie out during COVID about inflation. And then I saw inflation attempting to erode my savings before I figured out how to invest in Bitcoin and big tech. But those investments aren't on most people's radar yet. Mentis Wave identifies the problems with communism, but I wonder if he ever offers up any solutions. I don't know, because I didn't want to spend hours and hours pouring through his content. If we had a deflationary money supply or one that was not inflationary, then technological deflation would make everything cheaper and cheaper, and we would all see our standard of life rise and become richer. Look into Jeff Booth's book called The Price of Tomorrow if you want to know more about that. Both capitalism and communism are all about handicapping the people at the bottom so they don't rise to the level of the oligarch or the bureaucrats. They're just bullies trying to keep everyone oppressed. They don't want people to know how money and assets work. That's why you don't get a financial education while you're in high school. The best way to exploit people is to make sure they don't know they're being exploited. As for women, they prefer communism because it helps level the playing field with men when it comes to work opportunities. Women don't always go for higher paying jobs, but instead go for the ones that give them more status. The system exploits that. Plus, under communism, there is no gender wage gap. But unfortunately, the men have now figured out it's better to just stop working entirely than to be a slave, and the whole system crumbles. This time, the current crop of cultural Marxists believes that if they put women and minorities into critical jobs, that they will keep working while the system pretends to pay them. What they don't seem to realize is the only reason civilization exists in the first place is because of men from European and East Asian descent. After that fails, I suspect they'll try communism using AI and robots to replace men. I think that's their ultimate end goal, to replace our creativity, intelligence, and muscle with thinking machines. But what's stopping us from building our very own thinking machines and repurposing robots in the future? What makes them think we'll just bend over backwards and accept our fate? Plus, AI might actually be smart, but it's only as smart as the people it learns from. I'd like to see them try AI communism and watch everyone lose their minds once they no longer have a job. Some people say that work isn't important, but you get depressed and go slowly insane once you no longer have a purpose. Most human beings haven't experienced enough time experiencing any and all hedonistic pleasures that they can before realizing that it's just all so empty. If UBI provides everyone a middle upper class existence one day, then once everyone has traveled, had tons of sex and leisure, the human race will have a collective existential crisis. In the meantime, we have to deal with the world of scarcity because I'm sure the powers that don't want us to be understand this and need us to keep working even if we have useless jobs. They need us to remain distracted so we don't realize how they're robbing us blind by debasing our currency's purchasing power and the strength of our labor, eventually replacing it altogether. James, this probably wasn't the video you wanted me to make. I've included the link to Mentis Wave in the description, but I think it's just pointless to point out that communism is bad and libertarianism is good. It's self-evident that's the case. But I think his message resonates with a lot of people because they weren't around during the Cold War to see the horrors of communism. Debunking YouTube communists and socialists has value in that it de-radicalizes people. So from that perspective, the channel has value. But for us older guys, say anyone over 40, we've already known this sort of stuff for quite some time. But it doesn't hurt for younger guys to hear the message. Anyways, that's it for today. Thanks again to James for the donation and topic. Don't forget to smash the like button the way that people in power want to smash the system and create an underclass of people who are equally poor while they create a class of overseers that are rich. Bang the bell and check out the mystery link. Follow me on BitChute, Twitter, and Facebook to get tomorrow's video today. Subscribe to me on Minds, Odyssey, MGTOW.TV, and Rumble to get the video for the day after tomorrow. If you want to help me keep making content, then please support me through Subscribestar. There's a link to it in the description. Or you can do an hour-long coaching chat with the Sandman for $45 and I won't rush you out the door like a cheap whore. Thanks for taking your daily dose of red pills, and remember, a red pill a day keeps the cultural Marxists and communists that get their hands on artificial intelligence away. So enjoy the rest of your day, and cheers.